She married a 72-year-old stranger. What she found 10 days later changed everything. Welcome to our channel, where every story holds a spark of hope. If you enjoyed today's journey, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Your words connect us across oceans and miles. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. A brand new story, one filled with heart and courage, is waiting for you tomorrow. Join us as we continue weaving tales that inspire and uplift. Until then, stay safe, stay hopeful, and keep the light alive. The sun beat down harshly on the cracked, dusty fields outside the village. But for 11-year-old Sophia, the warmth of the day did nothing to ease the cold knot of fear in her chest. She stood barefoot on the uneven wooden floor of her mother's small hut, wearing a faded white dress that had once belonged to someone else. The hem was too long, brushing against her ankles, and the fabric itched where it touched her sunburned skin. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a worn photograph of her little brother, Ethan, whose fever had drained the life from his tiny 6-year-old body. Sophia's heart felt heavier than the dry, dusty air pressing against her lungs. She was not naive. She knew what was coming. Outside, the villagers gathered in small, tense clusters. The women whispered behind cupped hands, their eyes darting toward the door. The men stood silently, their faces turned away, unwilling or unable to watch what they all knew was about to happen. Mr. Harrison Cole, a man who looked almost ancient with his silver hair and tired blue eyes, waited patiently outside. At 72 years old, he was nearly 7 times Sophia's age. No one knew exactly why he had come to their remote village in the hills. Some said he was an American investor. Others said he was a man running from something. But everyone agreed on one thing: he had money. The kind of money that could buy medicine, food, and hope. 2 weeks earlier, when Ethan had fallen sick, Sophia's mother had pleaded with the local clinic to help them, but without payment, $5,000, an impossible sum for them. The doors had stayed closed. In desperation, Sophia's mother had sold her sewing machine, her wedding ring, even Sophia's school books. But it wasn't enough. Hope seemed like a cruel joke until Harrison Cole appeared at their door, offering a way out, a marriage proposal. Transaction. Sophia's mother had refused at first, screaming through tears, clutching her children close. But when Ethan's seizures worsened, when his small body burned hotter than the midday sun, the fight drained out of her. She could not bear to bury another child. That night, with her mother's face buried in her hands and her brother moaning, softly on a thin mat, Sophia whispered into the darkness, "I'll do it." There had been no ceremony worthy of the name. An elder spoke a few trembling words. Harrison simply nodded when asked if he accepted Sophia as his wife. She said nothing at all. There was no kiss, no celebration, only a strange, hollow silence that seemed to swallow the whole village. As Sophia stepped out into the blinding afternoon light, her veil slipping crookedly over her forehead, she felt a strange mixture of fear and numbness. She was no longer a child. She was a wife now, bound by words she barely understood, tied to a future she could not imagine, all for the chance to save a life more precious to her than her own. Sophia expected the worst. She had heard the whispers, seen the sidelong glances of the villagers. She braced herself for cruelty, for commands, for the heavy hand of a man who had bought her like a trinket. As she climbed into the battered truck that would take her to Harrison Cole's guest house, her heart hammered so loudly she thought it might break her ribs. The ride was long and silent. Dust kicked up around them, painting the world in shades of gray. Harrison said nothing. He kept his hands firmly on the wheel, his gaze fixed on the winding road ahead. Sophia dared a glance at him once. His face was weathered, the lines around his eyes deep, but there was no anger there. Only something else, something she couldn't name. When they arrived, Sophia's stomach twisted into tighter knots. The house was large but simple, nestled against the forest line, its white paint peeling in the summer heat. Inside, it smelled of cedar and old books. She was shown to a room, her room, with a bed of her own, clean sheets, a window looking out over the trees, no locks on the door, no orders barked, no hands reaching for her. At dinner, Harrison placed a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup in front of her, the smell making her realize how hungry she truly was. He didn't sit at the head of the table like a king awaiting tribute. Instead, he pulled a chair across from her, giving her space. He didn't force conversation. He simply said in a voice so soft it barely reached her ears, "You should eat." Sophia blinked at him, confused. She waited for the demand that would surely follow. It never came. That night, she curled up on her bed, still in the old wedding dress, too afraid to remove it, too uncertain what would happen if she slept. Through the thin walls, she heard Harrison settle into a different room. The door between them clicked softly, locked, but from his side, not hers. Days passed in the same strange rhythm. Each afternoon, he brought her a fresh set of clothes. Jeans, cotton shirts, sneakers that fit her small size. He even handed her a spiral notebook and a pencil, saying, "Write whatever you want, even if it's just how mad you are at me." Sophia didn't understand. Every story she had been told, every nightmare she had prepared for was unraveling before her eyes. Harrison never touched her, never raised his voice, never even looked at her the way the other men in the village sometimes did. Instead, he treated her like glass. No, not fragile out of pity, but precious, valuable, worth protecting. And somehow that scared her more than anything, because in Sophia's world, kindness always had a price. It was just a matter of when you would be asked to pay. The days crept by, each one stranger than the last. Sophia spent her time exploring the guest house, wandering its endless hallways and peeking into rooms filled with old furniture, dusty paintings, and books in languages she couldn't read. Harrison stayed the same, polite, distant, almost invisible. It was as if they existed in two separate worlds inside the same house. But one thing gnawed at Sophia's mind. The door at the end of the hall. Heavy, dark wood. A brass handle that refused to turn. Every time she passed it, she felt a chill prickle across her skin, a quiet warning humming beneath the surface. She asked Harrison about it once over tea, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled faintly and said, "Some doors aren't ready to open yet." That answer, calm and cryptic, only fueled her curiosity. What was he hiding? Was it a secret life, a dark past, something even worse? Sophia knew one thing. She couldn't live under his roof without knowing what shadows clung to the corners. The opportunity came on a rainy Thursday. Harrison announced he would be heading into town for supplies and might be gone for hours. The moment she heard the old pickup rumble down the gravel road, Sophia raced to the forbidden door. Her hands trembled as she picked the lock with a hairpin she'd hidden in her sleeve. It clicked open with a soft, traitorous sound. Inside, the air was colder, thicker. A single bulb swung overhead, casting long, swaying shadows across the walls. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Photos lined the room from floor to ceiling. Dozens, maybe hundreds of children from all over the world. Some smiled brightly, others looked wary. But all were young, no older than Sophia herself. Beneath each photo, handwritten dates and names were carefully inscribed. Some had neat little X marks scratched through them. Some didn't. In the corner, a wooden trunk sat half open, stuffed with notebooks and letters. Sophia pulled one free. It was addressed to someone named Marisol. "Dear Marisol, you're probably 17 now. I still think about your laughter. I hope you kept the violin. I'm sorry I had to leave so soon." Another letter to Chica, another to Lena, all filled with memories, apologies, and hopes that never seemed to reach their destinations. And then, at the very bottom of the stack, a fresh letter, barely a week old. It was addressed to her. To Sophia. "You don't know yet, but you will. I just hope I live long enough to see you smile for real." Sophia's fingers tightened around the paper. Her heart pounded in her chest, a sharp, panicked rhythm. Behind her, the floor creaked. She spun around. Harrison stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his silver hair plastered to his forehead, but his face wasn't angry. It wasn't even surprised. It was just tired. "I suppose it's time you knew," he said softly. Sophia backed toward the trunk, her voice shaking. "Knew what?" Harrison stepped into the room, the door clicking shut behind him. His eyes met hers, heavy with a sadness so deep it made Sophia's chest ache. "I didn't marry you for me," he said. "I married you for you." Sophia didn't move. She clutched the letter to her chest as Harrison sank slowly into an old armchair by the window, his breath shallow, his eyes distant. For the first time, he spoke without the polite walls he had always kept between them. He told her everything, how he had spent the last 20 years traveling across forgotten corners of the world, searching for children who had no one, girls abandoned, sold, traded like property. He couldn't save them all. Sometimes he ran out of time. Sometimes the law failed him. Sometimes money wasn't enough. He told her how he had found her village on accident, or maybe it was fate. How he had heard whispers about a man, a foreign businessman, offering money for girls as young as 8. How Sophia's family's debt had made her a target. How Harrison had only one choice, to step in before someone darker did. "You were never supposed to be here," he said quietly, his voice almost breaking. "But once I met you, once I saw the fire in your eyes, I knew I had to try." Sophia listened, her throat tight, her small fingers crumpling the edge of the letter she still couldn't bear to let go. That night she didn't sleep. She sat by her window, legs pulled up to her chest, staring out into the dark trees. The rain had stopped, but the world still felt heavy, suspended in something between sorrow and hope. By morning, the house was too quiet. Sophia knocked on Harrison's door. No answer. She pushed it open carefully, heart hammering. He lay on his side, the blanket pulled up neatly, his face calm and still. His hands folded over his chest, clutched a small photo, the one of a smiling girl under a blossom tree. His breathing had stopped sometime in the night. The doctors later said it was congestive heart failure. Peaceful. Quick. But to Sophia, it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the earth had shifted beneath her feet. In the days that followed, everything blurred together. Strangers came and went. A lawyer arrived, her heels clacking sharply across the wooden floors. Her name was Ms. Monroe, and she carried a leather folder under one arm. Inside was Harrison's will. Handwritten, notarized, undeniable. Sophia, barely 11 years old, was named the sole heir to Harrison Cole's estate. The villagers whispered behind their hands. Some said she had bewitched him. Some called it witchcraft. Others said she must have tricked him somehow. But Sophia said nothing. She moved through the days like a ghost, silent and steady. When Ms. Monroe sat her down and explained the inheritance, the house, the land, the savings account with nearly $850,000, Sophia barely reacted. None of it mattered. It wasn't the money she clung to. It was the second letter she found hidden in Harrison's bedside drawer. "Sophia, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But that's okay. I've lived my life. Now it's time for you to live yours. The most important thing I leave you isn't money. It's freedom. Don't waste it." For the first time since Harrison's death, Sophia wept. Not out of fear, not out of loneliness, but out of love. The weight of Harrison's final letter sat in Sophia's pocket as she moved through the empty hallways of the guest house. Every creaking floorboard, every whisper of wind through the windows felt like a reminder. Freedom wasn't a gift, it was a responsibility. At first, she didn't know what to do. She was just 11, barely tall enough to reach the top shelves. In Harrison's library, let alone manage an estate. Ms. Monroe guided her through the legal necessities, always speaking softly, patiently. But the decisions, the real ones, she left to Sophia. And it was Sophia, small and quiet but unshakable, who made her first bold move. She reopened Harrison's ledgers, the ones he used to track every donation, every life he touched. She pointed to the clinic. the same one that had once turned her brother away and instructed Ms. Monroe to release funds. Within weeks, the clinic had medicine, proper beds, and doctors who could treat any child, rich or poor. Next, Sophia ordered the construction of a school, right there in the dusty market square where she used to sell herbs and cheap trinkets. To survive, she built a place where girls could learn, read, and dream, without fear that one day they would be sold off in desperation. But Sophia didn't stop there. She used Harrison's money, and eventually her growing voice, to push for real change. She funded a new law for the region. No girl under 14 could be married, not without it being reported to a new independent registry. If they tried, Sophia's estate would know, and the authorities would be forced to act. The villagers muttered. Behind closed doors, some were angry, some were afraid. They said she was cursed, that no child should have that much power. But others, especially the women, the mothers, started whispering a different name for her, the girl who came back with fire. At night, Sophia would sit in Harrison's old chair, the candlelight flickering against the walls now lined with new books, new maps, new dreams. She read the letters of the girls Harrison once tried to save. She answered them, in her own handwriting, promising that the light he gave would never go out. Months later, when the rainy season came, Sophia found another letter tucked inside one of Harrison's old books. If they come for you, don't be afraid. Attached was a list. Names, dates, places, men in power who profited from trafficking, from marriage deals, from the broken lives of forgotten girls. Harrison had spent years gathering evidence, too dangerous to expose while he was alive. Now, it was hers. Sophia made her second bold decision. She didn't hide. She didn't run. She stood up. By 12, she was running a foundation. By 13, her story had spread across newspapers and television screens around the world. By 14, she had spoken at the United Nations, her small voice carrying bigger than kings and politicians. She wasn't a princess. She wasn't a charity case. She was a spark that turned into a wildfire. And every time Sophia stood before a crowd, trembling but unbroken, she would remember Harrison's last words. They can't kill the light once it knows who it is. If Sophia's story touched your heart today, we would love to hear from you. What part of her journey resonated the most with you? Was it her courage to say yes when the world gave her no choice? Her decision to fight back, even when she was still just a child? Or the way she carried Harrison's legacy forward, refusing to let the darkness win? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here. Tell us where you're watching from, what emotions this story stirred in you, or how you believe we can all help carry the light forward in our own lives. Every comment, every reflection builds a bridge between us, reminding us that even across distance and differences, stories can unite us. And if you know someone who would be inspired by Sophia's courage, share this video with them. Let's keep these conversations alive. Together, we can honor the quiet heroes, the ones who pass the torch without asking for glory, just as Harrison did, just as Sophia continues to do. We're so grateful to have you with us on this journey.